Y'all not gonna believe this, but Bari actually made it out. I said it. Bakari survived the Kai. After everything, after all that gunplay, all them enemies, all that street life, he was neck deep and this man walked away alive, breathing, and living good in Atlanta. And if you know anything about hood dramas, you know that almost never happens. So today we breaking down exactly how Bari pulled off the impossible, what his whole journey really means, and why this ending hit different. Let's get into it. When Bari first showed up on our screens back in season 3, ain't nobody know this dude was about to become one of the most important characters on the whole show. He was in the background at first, just moving around, doing little things here and there. And honestly, a lot of us probably didn't even clock him as somebody who was gonna matter. But that's the thing about the Kai, man. They be putting these characters in the cut early, letting them simmer, and then boom, they hit you with a reveal that changes everything. And that's exactly what happened with Bari. Because once we found out he was the shooter, once we found out he was the one who ran up on Ronnie, after everybody was calling Ronnie a hero, everything changed. Bari looked at all that praise Ronnie was getting and said, "Nah, I ain't with it. You killed my boy Kugi, and you're not about to walk around here like you're somebody's savior." And he made good on that. He pulled the trigger, and just like that, this quiet background character became the most talked about mystery on the entire show. Everybody wanted to know who this shooter was, what his deal was, why he moved the way he moved. That's when you knew Ahmad Ferguson was about to be a star, because he took a role that could have been forgettable and turned it into something the whole internet was talking about. From that point on, Bari wasn't just a side character no more. He was a problem. He was somebody you had to watch. And honestly, looking back at it now, that first big move he made, dropping Ronnie, that set the tone for his entire journey. It told us who Bari really was underneath everything. A dude who loved hard, who was loyal to the people close to him, but who also had that killer in him, that willingness to do what needed to be done, no matter the cost. And that combination, that mix of loyalty and violence, that's what made his story so gripping to watch for the next several seasons. Because you never really knew which side of him was gonna show up. Was it gonna be the loving, loyal friend? Or was it gonna be the shooter who don't think twice before pulling up on somebody? That tension, that unpredictability, that's what kept us all locked in season after season. Waiting to see what Bari was gonna do next. Waiting to see if the streets were finally gonna catch up to him the way they catch up to almost everybody else in this type of story. As the seasons rolled on, we started seeing way more of Bari's world open up. And that's when his character really started to take shape. Season 4, he's still out here causing problems, still butting heads with Jake and Kevin and anybody who got in his way. But it's season 5 where things really start shifting, because that's when Bari starts becoming a real piece of the overall storyline instead of just a mystery in the background. We see him going through it with Victor over Imani. We see him getting tangled up in more and more of the street stuff. And then Rashad comes into the picture, and honestly, Rashad ends up being one of the most important people in shaping who Bari becomes. Rashad starts pushing him, starts making him think about the direction his life is headed in. And slowly but surely, we start seeing a different Bari emerge. Not the hothead from season 3 who was ready to pull that trigger at the drop of a hat, but somebody who's actually thinking, actually trying to figure out if there's more to life than the streets. And that change was necessary, because, let's be real, the Bari we met in season 3 and 4, that version of him was not making it to the end of this show. That version was too reckless, too quick to act off emotion, too deep in that street mentality with no plan to get out. If he stayed that way, the streets would have swallowed him up, just like they swallow up almost everybody who thinks they can play that game forever. But instead, we watch him evolve. We watch him start working with Nuck, get deeper into that lifestyle with Duda, really solidify himself as somebody who was known and respected in them streets. And Nuck respected him too, because Nuck knew exactly what Bari was capable of. Nuck knew Bari wasn't scared to do what needed to be done. And in that world, that kind of reputation means something. But here's the thing about Bari that separates him from a lot of these other hood drama characters. Even while he was building this reputation, even while he was moving through these dangerous circles, there was always this other side of him trying to break free. And that other side started getting stronger the moment Len came into his life. Len changes everything for Bari, and I mean everything. Because up until that point, Bari's whole world was built around the streets, around reputation, around handling business with his hands. But Len did not mess with that lifestyle at all. And it wasn't just because she didn't like violence in general. It was personal for her. She had seen what that life did to her own brother Jamal. She had watched that street stuff tear through her family and change the course of her whole life. And she was not about to sit back and watch it happen again with somebody she was falling for. So she starts pushing Bari, encouraging him to be better, to want more for himself than just surviving in the streets. And around this same time, Bari meets Professor Gardner, and that connection ends up planting the seed for something none of us saw coming. Dude starts writing a book. Think about that for a second. This is a guy who came into the show as a mystery shooter, as somebody moving in silence with a gun. And now he's sitting down putting his story into words, trying to build something real and lasting outside of that street life. That's growth. That's real character development, the kind that makes you actually root for somebody instead of just watching them for entertainment. And then Alicia comes into the picture too, and she becomes another major piece of Bari's story. She starts doing business with him. She respects him because she understands exactly what he is, somebody who only moves with violence when it's necessary, not somebody out here just looking for trouble. Alicia becomes almost like a mentor figure, helping him with contacts, helping him get his book out into the world, really trying to set him up for something better. But that relationship shifts hard once Alicia finds out that Bari knows who killed her son. That changes the whole dynamic between them. And honestly, that's where we start seeing the darker parallels creep back into Bari's story. The ones that hint at where this could all be headed if he's not careful. Remember that dream Bari had back in season 7, the one that gave off straight boys and the hood energy, where Alicia was about to smoke that boy right in front of him. That wasn't just a random dream sequence. That was the show warning us, telling us that no matter how much Bari was trying to change, no matter how much he was trying to build something new with Len and with his writing, the streets were not done with him yet. Those parallels, those warning signs, they started building way before season 8 ever got here. And once season 8 hit, everything came to a head. By the time we get deep into the later seasons, Bari's got real relationships built up. He's cool with Jake, cool with Papa, cool with Pastor Stanley Jackson. And his bond with Nuck runs deep too. But that bond with Nuck, the one that helped build Bari's reputation and kept him protected in a lot of ways, that bond starts cracking. Bari gets pissed off, genuinely hurt, over how Nuck was moving. Over Nuck dropping people like Pastor Freaky Zeke. It felt like Nuck was doing too much. Moving reckless, and that tension between them kept building until it exploded in the final season. And here's where Bari made one of his biggest mistakes. He started talking too much to Len. Pillow talking, telling her everything about what Nuck was doing, every move, every detail. And this is exactly what people like Raffi had been saying about him the whole time, that Bari talks too much, that he can't keep things close to the chest the way you need to in that lifestyle. That loose talk is what caused the final, permanent break between him and Nuck. And once that bond was broken, Bari made an even bigger mistake. He started working with Ridge. Out of everybody he could have aligned himself with, Ridge was the worst possible choice, but Bari was chasing money hard at this point. He wanted to support himself. He wanted to support Len. He wanted to build a real future. But he was going about it the wrong way. Jake straight up did not like that Bari was working with his brother. Because Jake understood something Bari didn't want to admit to himself. The longer you stay tied to Ridge, the faster you end up dropped off for good. Everybody around Bari could see the walls closing in except Bari himself. And then there's the blow-up with Raffi where Bari straight up beats the brakes off him in the final season. Now, anybody watching knew that wasn't the end of that situation. You don't put hands on somebody like that and expect them to just let it go. And we all knew Raffi was gonna come back looking for revenge eventually. Every single piece of this, the broken bond with Nuck, the deal with Ridge, the beef with Raffi, it all started feeling like one of them classic hood movie setups. The kind where you already know this is not gonna end well for the main character. We kept seeing those parallels stack up, one after another, and it had all of us bracing for the worst, and then it happened. The moment that really tells you everything about where Bari's head was at. Rashad asked him straight up, "Do you care whether you live or die?" That question hits different because it's the exact same question Kane got asked in that classic hood movie we all know. The one this whole story keeps drawing parallels to. And just like Kane, Bari didn't have a clear answer in that moment. He said he didn't know. Think about that for a second. A man who's been through everything, who's killed people, who's lost people, who's built a whole reputation off being somebody you don't cross. And even he couldn't say for certain whether he wanted to keep living or not. That's how deep the streets had gotten into him. But here's where Bari's story splits off from Kane's in the most important way possible. Kane didn't get a second chance. We all know what happened to him. But Bari did. Bari got that second chance at life that so many characters like him never get. He got to move to Atlanta with Len and with his sister Brittany. His book actually started selling. His writing career actually taking off after everything he put into it. And on top of all that, Len is pregnant. Bari's about to be a father. Let that sink in. The same man who came into this show as a mystery shooter hiding in the shadows is now about to bring a whole new life into the world, in a new city, away from everything that almost got him dropped off for good. That right there is a real, earned happy ending, the kind you don't see handed to characters like this very often. Now, look, we gotta talk about that hair for a second, because Lord knows Bari went from waves to looking like something straight out the wood with that head. I don't know what happened. I don't know who let him leave the house like that. But hey, he's still breathing. He's still winning. So I guess we let that slide. But real talk, shout out to Ahmad Ferguson for taking this character on a journey that started as a background mystery and turned into one of the most compelling arcs on the entire show. From the shooter in season 3 to a husband, a writer, and a father by the end, Bari's story proves that even when you're deep in it, even when every sign points toward the ending most of these characters get, change is still possible. Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about Bari's whole journey, whether you're happy with how it wrapped up. And yeah, go ahead and tell me what you think about that hairstyle too, because I know I'm not the only one who noticed. Make sure you're subscribed because we got more Mekai content coming all week, breaking down more characters and giving our full thoughts on the series as a whole. Appreciate y'all for rocking with me, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now let's really sit with this for a second. Because when you step back and look at the bigger picture, what Bari pulled off is not something you see very often in this type of storytelling. And honestly, the more you break it down, the more it hits you just how rare his ending actually is. Think about every other character we've watched come up in the streets on this show. Think about how many of them got introduced with all that same energy, all that same swagger, all that same sense that they were untouchable. And then, one by one, the streets caught up to them. That's the pattern. That's the formula these hood dramas run on, because it's realistic. It's what actually happens out here in real life more times than not. You get caught up, you make one wrong move, you trust the wrong person, you talk to the wrong somebody, and just like that, it's over. So when a character like Bari, who was right in the middle of all of that, who had his hands dirty just as much as anybody else on this show, manages to walk away and actually build a life, that's not just a good ending. That's basically a miracle in the world of the Kai. And I think that's exactly why this ending is hitting people so hard right now. Because we spent 8 seasons bracing ourselves. Every single time Bari made a move, every single time he got a little too close to somebody dangerous or made a decision that felt reckless, we were all thinking the same thing. Here it comes. This is the season they finally drop him off. And it never happened. They kept building the tension, kept stacking those parallels, kept giving us dream sequences and warning signs and near misses. And then at the very end, they let this man live. They let him win. And honestly, that takes guts from a storytelling perspective. Because a lot of shows would have taken the easy route and killed him off right at the peak of his character development. Right when we finally started loving him for real. Just to make a statement about how the streets don't discriminate and nobody's safe. That's a common move in this genre. Kill off the character right when the audience is most attached, right when it hurts the most. But the Kai didn't do that with Bari. And I respect that decision because it says something different. It says something almost hopeful, which is rare for a show that's been this raw and this real for this many seasons. It's saying that change is possible even when you're deep in it, even when everybody around you expects you to end up another statistic. It's saying that the people who push you, the Lens of the world, the Rashads of the world, the Professor Gardners of the world, they can actually pull you out if you let them. If you're willing to listen and actually do the work instead of just talking about doing better while still moving the same way. And that's the difference between Bari and so many other characters we've watched come and go on this show. Bari actually listened. He actually changed his behavior, not just his words. Yeah, he backslid here and there. Yeah, he got tangled up with Ridge when he shouldn't have. Yeah, he ran his mouth to Len about Nuck's business when he should have kept that to himself. But at the end of the day, the direction of his life was moving forward and not backward. He was building something instead of just surviving day to day. And I think that's the real lesson buried in this whole storyline. Because it's easy to say somebody needs to change. It's a whole different thing to actually watch what that change looks like in real time. Messy and imperfect, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Which is exactly how real change happens for real people too. Nobody just wakes up one day and flips a switch and becomes a completely different person. It's a process. It's relationships. It's people in your corner who believe in you even when you're still making mistakes. And that's exactly what we got to watch play out with Bari across these 8 seasons. Now, let's talk about Ahmad Ferguson for a second, because we can't finish this breakdown without giving him his flowers properly. Man came into this role and had to do something that's honestly one of the hardest things to pull off as an actor, which is playing a character who starts off as pure menace, pure mystery, somebody the audience is supposed to be a little afraid of and a little curious about, and then slowly, over the course of years, turn that same character into somebody the audience is rooting for. Somebody people are genuinely happy to see get a second chance. That's not easy to do convincingly. You gotta walk that line where the character still feels like the same person underneath. You're not just erasing his past and pretending season 3 Bari never existed, but you also gotta show real growth that feels earned instead of rushed. And Ferguson pulled that off season after season, giving us these little moments, these looks, these choices and how he played certain scenes. That let us track exactly how much Bari was changing, even when the plot itself was still throwing him into dangerous situations. That's a testament to his range as an actor. And I think this role is going to be looked back on as one of the standout performances of the whole series once people really sit down and rewatch the show from the beginning. Now, I also want to touch on something else, because a lot of y'all in the comments have been bringing up how Bari's journey connects to some of these other storylines we've followed on the show. And I think that's worth talking about too. When you look at how his path crossed with Jake, with Kevin, with Emmett, with all these other young men trying to figure out their place in this